Greetings to you. I welcome you back as I return to share the testimony of another victim from the rape gang inquiry reports. It's been a very harrowing experience, but I thank God for the strength, the grace to be able to do this. I feel humbled because I grew up in a place and in situations that should have placed all of my siblings. I have 6 sisters. We all could have been victims of various molestation events, incidents, but by the grace of God, we were protected, and for that I am grateful to God. So let's dive in to the world of yet another victim of the rape gang inquiry reports. Here we have Marlon. Marlon was the father of a daughter who was a repeated victim of grooming as well as being repeatedly failed by authorities. Marlon reported his 14-year-old daughter Scarlett missing a number of times because she was being groomed and exploited. The police informed social services that what Marlon was doing was appropriate as he was acting to safeguard his daughter. However, social services did not accept the police assessment and instead dragged out the investigation for 3 months. During that time, his daughter disclosed concerns to her school, which resulted in social services attending Marlon's home. While his daughter was present, they told him that if he tried to stop her from leaving the house, she should call social services or the police. Social services undermining his parental authority resulted in her missing episodes escalating dramatically. Social services effectively gave her permission to go missing, and the case was then closed without meaningful intervention. Marlon placed a formal complaint to social services stating that he was struggling to cope with his daughter's missing episodes. The social worker assigned to him following this openly stated to him that they were only taking the case because of his complaint. This made him feel like the problem rather than the parent concerned with safeguarding his daughter from abuse. On one occasion, Marlon stood in front of the door to prevent his daughter from leaving late at night, resulting in her repeatedly kicking him and breaking 3 of his fingers. My God. He reported this to social services, who simply stated he should walk away when she becomes violent. Even after showing them the bruises on his back that he received as he walked away, they did not change the advice they gave. Marlon remains convinced that if his child were male and he were female, the response would have been different. Marlon would often spend his evening driving in search of his daughter until 3 or 4 a.m. while having work the following day, which his employer was not supportive of. He often reported her missing to the police, who would sometimes turn up to his house many hours later. On one occasion, he saw footage of police saying not to bother even waking him. This made him feel more like a problem rather than it being the safeguarding emergency that it was. Scarlett was unlawfully excluded from school due to grooming-related behavior and assigned a new school where the grooming gang operated. A multi-agency risk management meeting was eventually convened with Children's Social Services and the police missing from home team. While the meeting was ongoing, one of the police officers in attendance told Marlon to stop reporting his daughter missing. Marlon challenged this, which resulted in the police officer shouting at him in front of all the in attendance. The officer has since been dismissed. The social worker and manager present did not intervene, but privately acknowledged he was right to continue to report his daughter missing. They refused to launch a formal complaint against the officer. Shortly after, his daughter went missing for several days and was eventually found at Marlon's mother's house unkempt, distressed, and stating that she had been raped. Care staff returned to the location of the rape, thereby destroying forensic opportunities, and failed to report it to the police until days later. Marlon had to make his own referral to the Rape Case Center, by which time forensic evidence was lost. The perpetrator was arrested but bailed with a condition not to contact Marlon's daughter. Immediately upon leaving the station, he called her and threatened her life. He was an adult and drug dealer, and his associates soon began attending Marlon's home. His daughter was terrified of them. An older woman began to groom and manipulate Marlon's daughter under the guise of friendship. After another missing episode, Marlon was able to trace his daughter to a specific property. Despite repeated calls and reports of men entering the property, both police and social services failed to remove her or issue an abduction warning notice. His daughter was later found to be the victim of criminal exploitation, including drug supply, prostitution, and being forced to dig up a firearm. These acts were directed by the older woman, amongst others. At this point, the impact on Marlon was catastrophic. He was physically exhausted, anxious, depressed, and living in constant fear. He was attacked by masked individuals in his home, with the police response delayed and dismissive. Marlon's daughter was eventually taken into social care, where she was subjected to further abuse, including sexual abuse by staff and other children, neglect and safeguarding failures. Marlon made multiple complaints. At a court hearing, social services attempted to place his daughter on a child protection plan for emotional abuse and neglect by Marlon himself. However, the judge intervened and ordered this to be amended to be recorded as beyond parental control. Marlon's daughter continued to be moved between unsuitable placements. She was groomed repeatedly, trafficked, forced into drug supply, and raped by adult men. She became pregnant as a result of rape. The handling of her termination by professionals was traumatic and negligent. Police later charged Scarlett with intent to supply Class A drugs, despite her being a victim of trafficking and on the national referral mechanism. Scarlett was placed in a unit entirely run by male Muslim staff, where she was groomed again. Racist abuse and extremist comments were made to her. Marlon again raised concerns which were ignored. Despite his repeated attempts to help his daughter, he had experienced many instances of violence from her as a result of the trauma and grooming. He has experienced many assaults, received black eyes, and had to sleep barricaded in his home. He repeatedly requested domestic abuse support but was refused because he was a male parent. He has been forced to complete parenting courses and blamed for his daughter's abuse. The whole experience has harmed Marlon financially, emotionally, and psychologically. He states it has destroyed his life. He's no longer the person he used to be. Marlon's case highlights that parents can also be victims of both grooming networks as well as widespread institutional. If you would like to hear Marlon's story in greater detail, he has recently published a book about his experience titled In Plain Sight. Yes, Marlon, a male parent. So it's not only little girls that were destroyed. even the lives of men, parents. From all the stories we've heard so far, there has never been an instance where the men, the grooming gang, creatures themselves have been apprehended, despite the avalanche of evidence. The girl Scarlett was arrested for possession of Class A drugs. Where did she get them? Did she manufacture the drugs by herself? Social service. When I worked as a teacher, one of the services I detested the most was social service, because I saw how they neglected real children in active time that needed help. Trust me, don't get me wrong, social service is fantastic. Majority of the time they do their job in today's world. They go all out to protect their child. But I would say 10% of the time, they get it wrong. This is where if they work actively with the parents, with other people involved, they would get to the bottom of matters, of issues. But some of the time, I don't know what's going on. I think when these rape gangs were doing their thing around the nation, all the services, all the authorities, everybody involved had cautioned everyone, had warned each other, probably from on high. Who knows? Who knows how high the directive, the order came? Just let them have their thing. Payback time. All those people must be possessed by the devil, because only the devil would see children being harmed, being destroyed. And you as an adult, you would feel because you don't want to be called racist. For goodness sake, give me the badge, give me the placard. I will carry it gladly. Let me be racist. So far as I point out the crime and I save that child or that person's life. My goodness. Human beings. God forbid. If you have children, please do all you can to protect them. This case is worse than we will ever get to know, because the hundreds of thousands of other children who didn't make it, whose stories never made it to light, only God knows. And the perverts who are still roaming around, they are lurking, they're in our neighborhoods, they have had children now, and their children are carrying out these crimes everywhere. Protect your children. I'll see you again soon.